Hey guys, it's Cameron for the series premiere of the Hulu Marvel original series, that being Runaways. This is Season 1, Episode 1, Reunion. And what Runaways is essentially about is we center on these 5 different teenagers, all of which quickly discover that they do have powers, but what they also don't know is that not only are they superheroes, but their parents are actually supervillains involved in this thing called the Pride. And Runaways overall, I was definitely very interested in the show, to say the least, for quite a few reasons. One, because it's the first Marvel show from Hulu that we've gotten, which I think is a really cool idea. You know, we've gotten so many Marvel series on Netflix at this point, but Hulu really hasn't tackled it yet. And I think it makes sense for them to maybe start doing a Marvel show, because the fact that they are so successful, to me, I think that they are in competition with Netflix right now. I think Amazon wishes they were, but let's face it, Hulu is the one that won all the Emmys, and I think, Netflix wishes they did, so I think because that Hulu, it was definitely time for them to tackle a Marvel property, but also because the concept just sounded really interesting, and I'm always up for a new Marvel show. And let me just say once again that Marvel has done again. Runaways is fantastic. I really loved this first episode. I thought there was a lot of great stuff going on here. This was definitely a very well done setup, and we're just going to get into it right now because I really do want to talk about it. And I love the way this episode starts off. We start off with this darkened metro bus in Los Angeles, and this woman who we later discover is named Destiny. She's cruising the streets solo. She exits the bus and calls a relative on a payphone, and we don't know who it is, but they're telling her that she needs to come home and that they sound very concerned. So this basically, after wordlessly hanging up the phone, she's stalked by this group of Latino men who are rattling rapid fire Spanish in her direction, but Destiny doesn't know Spanish, so she just thinks that they're harassing her and that they're just ganging up on her, which that's kind of what we're led to believe as well. But suddenly this white van pulls up out of nowhere beside the young woman. These 2 women who are also clad in white, they usher her inside the vehicle, telling her that they're going to give her food and shelter and all this stuff if they come with her, if she comes with them. So we then hear the men in Spanish explain they were just trying to save Destiny from the white van, so definitely there's something going on here. If these, Spanish men are not the ones who are actually shady, and these, people in white are, that already very much intrigued me. This was a very well... So we then cut to a flash forward where 6 months have actually passed since that night, and we're now in the lavish Wilder residence, and we get introduced to Jeffrey Wilder, who's attempting to connect with his son Alex, which really doesn't seem to be working. He's clearly been very aloof since his friend tragically passed, pretty much just finding comfort in video games and not really making much of a connection with anyone. But then they join his mother, Catherine, for breakfast, and both parents stage an intervention for their son out of genuine concern. Alex insists that he'll make friends when he gets to college, so he's not even concerned in making any connection. He just feels like, oh, it's just going to work out in college. But the Wilders are throwing a dinner party for their nonprofit organization that night, and they feel this could be a chance for him to reunite with his friends there, and it's very sad. Again, we don't know much about this group of friends, but already we're kind of feeling bad for this character. We don't really know what he's going through, but I did think this was, again, a very well done setup here. And I also am very intrigued, what is that nonprofit organization they're throwing? And you hear that a lot throughout this episode, but basically, meanwhile, we meet Nico Monroe, and she's methodically preparing for a day at school. She's basically completely just covered in black. I mean, she's got like black clothes, she's got black nails, just everything about her is black. And then her mother, Tina, catches Nico in her deceased sister's room borrowing black stockings, and Tina ushers her daughter out in a rage, furious that Nico would even consider trespassing on sacred ground. And you can tell the wound is definitely still there. So I like that we know who died. Like, it's not gonna be a whole season of like who actually died. We know very well that it was Nico's sister who actually died, and obviously the death is definitely still on everyone's mind. Everyone is still very much grieving from it, and Nico silently heads to school. And next we meet the character of Chase Stein, and he's lifting weights in his room, and he's also he's lifting weights there, and he ventures downstairs for breakfast at his mother's behest. He finds his father Victor at the table, and basically we see, and Victor is actually played by James Marsters. Yes, Spike from Buffy is in the show, which is really cool to see. But Victor's very terrifying in this. We see that there's just something about him that's very just intimidating, and we don't really know what it is. But he comments on Chase's average grade in Spanish class, and we can see that while Chase is definitely someone who's very athletic and he's probably very liked by the school, academically he doesn't really seem to be doing all that well. He's not doing bad, he's just getting very mediocre grades, and you can tell his father is just not accepting that. So then we meet Carolina Dean. She's the face of the Church of Gibbon and Gibbon, alongside her pastor mother Leslie and father Frank, and Carolina's avidly watching her mother's ceremonies in front of a large, eager church body. And then finally we meet the character of Gert Yorks, and her adopted sister Molly Hernandez are dropped up at school by the Yorks parents. And Stacy and Dale, we see they are actually the complete opposite of all these parents. They're very loving, they seem to be just very laid back, and I really did love these two characters, Stacy and Dale. They just seem really laid back. They seem like they're just really fun-loving people. And we see Gert is someone who is she's a feminist in this show. And I really love the way this was done. They did a really good job of getting us into all of these characters, really showing us who everyone is. So once they do meet up a little bit later, then we really do want to know more about them. So next, after the character introductions, we see how they interact at school, but by interact, it's kind of like a lack of interaction. Chase initially brushes off a clearly love-struck Gert just by being your stereotypical jock who doesn't seem to have much interest in her whatsoever. Nico's sitting alone reading while Alex works up the courage to speak to her. So it's clear that this is a group that used to be friends, but this death has very much fractured them, and they just can't really communicate the same way now. And Carolina also roams alone. We see she seems perfect. Like, it seems like there's really nothing wrong with her. She's just she's a church girl. She's stunning to look at. She's like the picture perfect one of the group. And then Alex calls her mom after making an executive decision that he will invite his old friends over while their parents meet for their charity dinner, because he does, we see, kind of want to reconnect with them. There's definitely a degree of care there. And we then see he has a photo including all the characters we were just introduced to, and we realized that they used to be friends, which I thought was cool. I like we realized that all these characters actually used to be a group of friends, but of course the death of Nico's sister has very much kind of split them up, and we see how much it really has impacted them. So meanwhile, Leslie's paying a visit to a bedridden man with a severe case of eczema, and she giddily informs him that his time is swiftly arriving. We don't know what this is about, but this was definitely, again, very intriguing. We don't know really what she's talking about here, but later we see Gert. She's petitioning her classmates to join her after school group. She hopes to instill change in the way things run. Of course, we see that she's essentially a social justice warrior. That's what she is in this episode. But basically, Alex vocalized his proposition regarding their potential group hang at the Wilder residence, and everyone just brushes it aside, not really paying the idea any sort of heed. They just think it's a really bad idea. They're just, they used to be friends, but it's just not going to happen now. So no one really seems all that interested. And I like seeing that Alex is someone who, he wants to get back with his friends. He wants them to be on good terms again, but no one else seems to really want to put forth that effort. It seems like Alex is the only one who's really interested in doing anything. He's just kind of sick of them just ignoring each other, which is understandable. It's clear that these three used to be really good friends, and you can tell that Alex really wants that connection back. And it seems like it's hard to do that, though, because none of them seem all that interested, which, again, it's sad. And I like that even though we haven't seen them as friends, we can already tell, who these characters were. We can already tell the interactions that they used to have, and really what's fractured them, which, again, it's just sad. You wish that these three could go back to being friends, but unfortunately they can't. But we then see Molly. She auditions for the school dance team. Everything seems great until she's stricken with menstrual cramps, and we realize she's actually having her first period here. So she immediately heads to the nurse's office to breathe through the pain in peace. And I did like this. I like the way this scene was done because we realize there's more going on with Molly than we think. We're initially thinking that, you know, the 5 that we were introduced to, they're going to be like the main teenagers, but Molly actually had a lot more to do than I expected. Remember, guys, I didn't read the comics, so meanwhile, Chase is speaking with a Spanish teacher regarding his average grades, and Gert follows him closely, eavesdropping on the conversation, and she clearly, once again, only has eyes for Chase. You know, she really likes him in a romantic way, and she offers to tutor him in Spanish, and he heartily agrees to the arrangement, thinks that it would be a way to, you know, that it would be suitable for his tutoring needs, and I really like seeing that. I like seeing that Gert and Chase, maybe they have this chemistry, maybe they will start something. I don't know if it's going to happen this early on, but I do think eventually maybe these two could start a relationship, and I do like where this is going here. So we then see Alex, and he finally attempts to talk to Nico, of course. Nico has her headphones in, and again, just pretends to not hear him. So we know better. She pretty much heard every word. She just chose not to respond. It's one of those things where she knew very well what he was saying, but she was just acting like she wasn't listening. So again, you're hoping that these two could maybe become friends again. But later we see Carolina. She's crying in the bathroom because someone actually defiled a photo she posted on social media, calling her something to a religious freak. And Nico's also crying in the bathroom post Alex interaction. And bathrooms are, we see, you know, these two are both crying. And they both chalk up their tears to seasonal allergies, which that's actually very relatable. I know a lot of times people will cry and say it's just allergies, but meanwhile, we see Molly. She's sitting in the nurse's office cramping. She's suffering in menstrual hell. While the nurse is away, something unusual happens where her eyes then glow a golden color, and she grips the bottom of her seat, and we see her seat is actually folding. It's bending under her hands, so she leaves massive dents behind, and it appears that her sort of becoming a woman has kind of unlocked her powers, which this was actually really cool. I like the way the scene was done, and I'm looking forward to getting more into what Molly's powers really are about. So, and this is the first thing we've seen of anyone having powers on this show. I mean, we know that these characters are eventually going to have powers, but Molly's is the first instance we've really seen of that. So next, Carolina meets Destiny as she's doing an interview on behalf of Leslie, and Destiny, we see she has pretty much changed for the better since being pulled off the streets. She mentions her rebellious phase, which catches Carolina's attention, and she too yearns for her rebellion. Why? Because she has to be so perfect, and she doesn't want to be anymore. She wants to break some rules. She wants to do something that defies her parents. And I really do like that about Carolina. You know, on the surface, she just seems like your basic, perfect, rich church girl, but she wants to be a lot more than that. She actually wants to be rebellious. She wants to maybe break a few rules. She wants to do something that doesn't involve church, and I like seeing her. I like seeing that she does lawn for a little bit more, but later Molly arrives to an empty house. She decides to test run her powers on their Volkswagen in the garage, and with quite a bit of exertion on her part, she's able to push the Volkswagen up at an incline, and after a successful push, she cheers, ecstatic, and she then gets a text from Gert that she has to feed the family pets, and we then see all of the parents of their teens. They're gathering together for a meeting of the Pride, and we finally realize what this is all about. It's a charity winning and dining. Alex is disappointed because no one showed up on his end, and thus he sends to eat 6 large pizzas alone, and you just feel really bad for this character. You could tell he really does want his friends back. He really is trying to put forth that effort. It's just they don't seem as interested, and you feel bad for him here. So meanwhile, Gert's left waiting in the woods while Chase ends up going to a party, and Caroline decides to shrink her good girl image for the night and arrives at the party, and basically, you know, just to see how Chase is going to react. So Carolina promptly stepped inside. She receives a pill containing a copious amount of drugs, and she contemplates taking it. You get the sense that Carolina has never had drugs in her life, but she's like, should I really do it? But she doesn't, and I like that. I like that we saw that she isn't, while she does want to be rebellious, she isn't willing to just make all kinds of bad decisions. Like, she doesn't want to take drugs. Instead, she unclasps the wristband she's currently sporting, and this unlocks something never before seen. Her arms and hands begin changing colors. they're sparkling under the dark lighting, and I thought this was really well done. This actually makes her faint. So because this, a duo of probably really horny teenagers, they drag her upstairs with a worried Chase and Tao, thinking that, holy shit, they might actually, something else could go down here. Maybe she'll get raped. But I really did like the scene. Again, we see she has powers as well, and that's some of the best stuff about this episode, is seeing these characters starting to become aware of their powers. Not everyone is, but I did like seeing the beginnings of it, and I'm looking forward to seeing really where that does go. So next, Molly ventures downstairs to fed the Yorks many pets. Of course, it was Gert's turn, but what she discovers is, again, really astonishing, where she finds a real, authentic dinosaur sequestered away in her basement. Yeah, there's a dinosaur in her basement. She frantically calls Gert, begs her sister to pick her up, and this is incredible. I mean, where do these dinosaurs come from? How long have they been roaming their garage? I mean, there's a lot of questions here, and this, again, was very interesting. Chase then walks in on the boys unfastening Carolina's belt. He fends them off successfully, clasps Carolina's bracelet back on. She instantly wakes up, not able to recall really what happened before. I will admit, I didn't really think this was necessary. I understand that she wanted to be a little more rebellious, but her almost getting raped in the first episode, I just didn't really think was all that necessary. But basically, she must have a power that's controlled by her bracelet. So clearly she has no idea what's been going on. She has total memory loss, and I think that's very interesting that the bracelet kind of is the thing that controls it. So basically they hop in an Uber together, they speed away from the calamity of the party, obviously because it was just a complete disaster, and later we see Nico on the beach. She's performing a spell. She's attempting to summon her deceased sister, which we get the sense this isn't the first time she's done it. She's been trying to do this before, but unfortunately it's unsuccessful, and she breaks down in tears. And again, we don't need to see her relation with her sister to really feel her pain. I will admit, maybe seeing it would have been just a little bit more effective, but I did think it was a well done scene overall. But then we get to the ending here, where finally everyone comes together. We see Chase, Carolina, Molly, Gert, and Nico. They're standing on the threshold of the Wilder residence, and Alex then greets them, and they're all reunited. But it's very awkward. This is not like, a good thing for them. It's very awkward. They don't really know how to interact, and they discuss why Alex didn't attend Nico's sister's funeral. So now it makes sense why they've kind of brushed off any sort of social interaction with him, because he's kind of just been out of the loop, and her death caused a ripple effect. It obviously severed the bond that they had with one another, and after some persuading by Alex, our group decides to stay, but first, alcohol. Chase follows the scent and discovers where Alex's father stashes away the booze. He apologizes to Gert for standing her up, but she can see that Carolina was more important, so I guess we have a bit of a love triangle going on. Not sure how I feel about that, but we'll have to see where that does go. But Chase suddenly, while rifling for a coaster, Alex turns a stack of fake coasters to reveal a secret passageway, and they venture downstairs, and there's an entire basement level that exists, and they stumble upon their parents. They're decked out in red robes. An invisible force field's been enacted to prevent sound from traveling inward or outward. Thus, they can react loudly without disturbing the scene. So we see Destiny emerge. She's clad in white. The pride then tower over her. They place her body on a slab of rock. Suddenly, she just disappears. No reason why. She just suddenly disappears, and we don't know what's going on there. So they rightfully collect. So they obviously are freaking out. They don't know what's going on there. Molly attempts to snap a photo of the scene, but the flash on her phone is seen by their parents. So Jeffrey Wilder gazes up at the spot where the flash used to be. They scamper off. Jeffrey asks what the hell was that, and that is the way this episode ends. So, like I said, guys, a lot of things I definitely really did love about this first episode, but we're going to get into it right now, starting off with the cast. And let me just say right now, that is easily the best thing about this first episode. I thought, honestly, everyone did a really great job. But for me, the standout, without a doubt, is Rhenzy Feliz as Alex Wilder. He was fantastic in the show. Alex is someone who we can tell, he's a little bit nerdy, and he's kind of distanced himself from his friends, but now he jumps this opportunity. He really wants that friendship back, but it seems like no matter what he does, they can't really go back to the way things were. I mean, he kind of abandoned them, and they are not really going to forgive him for that, and that's completely understandable. But I really did feel bad for Alex when he's trying to, recruit his friends, and he's trying to maybe have some bonding and some interactions there. You could see that this is not easy for him, and I really did love seeing him struggle through that. I thought he honestly did a really great job here, and for me, it seems like he definitely is going to be one of the hearts of this show, and I really did love that. I thought he honestly was fantastic here, and I'm looking forward to seeing really where his character does go, if he can make up with Nico, what's really going to happen there, but I really did love what we got with this character. And then Lyrica Okano as Nico, I also really liked. We can tell that she is pretty much, I'm assuming, is a witch because she has these powers where she's able to summon her dead sister. I'm not entirely sure what she is, but obviously she's been aware of her powers for a while now. A lot of these characters are just now discovering their powers, but Nico seems like she's already really aware of what's going on with her, and I thought she did a really great job. You can tell how much the character is brooding. You can tell how much this has affected her, and I'm interested in seeing maybe how this character was before this death. Was she just as goth? Was she, did she have these powers? What really triggered all this? How did her sister die? That's stuff that we still don't know, and I'm very interested in seeing what's going on there, and I thought she did, like I said, a really good job. Someone who really surprised me, though, was Virginia Gardner as Carolina. I was not expecting too much from her in this episode, but she really did a great job. I love that she starts off and she's, this regular model type Christian girl, and everyone thinks that she's just perfect, but she doesn't want to be. She wants to sever her reputation a bit. She wants to show that she can just be a fun girl, and I really did love seeing that with her. I thought she did a really great job here, and I definitely really did like what we got with her character in this episode. Honestly, guys, I thought all of the Runaways just worked so well together. They already have really good chemistry. We didn't see a ton of them, as, in a group in this episode, but I thought, honestly, they were the standout of the show. I thought they really did a great job here, and I definitely really did like what we got with the Runaways. Can't say too much about the Pride because we didn't see a ton of them, but from what I saw with them, they were good as well. I thought, honestly, really there isn't a weak performance here, and that's something I definitely will give this cast so far. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, because once again, the thing that works so well with the show is it's a very different tone from other Marvel shows. At least from what I can think of, we haven't really seen a Marvel TV show that takes place and focuses on a group of teenagers. We really have yet to see that. I mean, sure, there's been, movies, obviously, Spider-Man, things like that, but this is a TV show where it's a group of teenagers, and I actually really do like that. And there's a lot of tones here. There are parts of the show that kind of remind me of Riverdale a little bit. There are definitely parts that remind me of that, but there are also parts of the show that remind me of other Marvel shows, and I really do like the tone for the show. It feels like your typical high school drama, but with a twist, and that's something I definitely really do love. I love the, superhero part here. I love the sort of, all the drama going on. I think all that's definitely very interesting, and I really do like the tones for the show. I thought there were honestly some comedic moments that also worked really well, so I definitely thought the tone is definitely good for this show. I think it definitely is, they're definitely heading the right direction when it comes to the tone, and I'm definitely very impressed with that. The writing here as well is really great. I really do love the writing in this show because it's very realistic, and for the most part, at least for the most part, it's realistic. It's realistic in the sense where you can tell how much this trauma has affected them and how this one thing has kind of divided an entire group, and what this has really done to all the characters, and how everyone involved has really had some sort of loss, and I really did like seeing that here. I mean, sure, it's very sad, but I thought they portrayed it in a very honest manner, and just little things we found out in this first episode. Like I said, Alex not coming to the funeral. I mean, that really does make sense for why no one wants to hang out with him. Nico being goth, how long has she been goth? Has, Gert always been as interested in, being a SJW, for lack of a better term? Has that always been like her main passion? Has Carolina always been this church girl, or is it just that this death Is it just that this death has affected them so traumatically that these are the only ways that they've taken comfort into these sort of extracurricular activities and, sort of things that they've kind of done on their own, just so they can distance each themselves from one another? Is that really what's going on here? And I thought that, honestly, like I said, was just very well done. My only real thing with this show is, one, the whole thing going on with Nico, Carolina, and Chase, I don't really care about. I don't care about the love triangle there. I understand it's going to be in the show because it's a high school drama and it's definitely going to be present, but I just don't really care. Chase is the one character here that I just didn't really care much about. He just kind of seems like a dumb jock to me, but maybe that's because the show wants you to see him as that. Like, similar to how they wanted you to think Alex was just a nerd, but we see he's definitely more than that. or how they wanted you to think, Carolina was just a church girl, but she's more than that. Chase just doesn't really feel the way to me. He seems like a very, one-note type character. I like Greg Sulkin's performance, nothing wrong with that. I just don't know if I really love this character as much. I think his interactions with Carolina are well done, but I don't know if we really need a love triangle this early on. It just didn't really work as well for me. And I will definitely admit that I don't think Carolina needed to almost get sexually assaulted in this episode. I thought that was just pushing it a little too far. I get what the show is trying to do, but to me, it just seemed a little bit too rushed. I don't think they need to take it in that direction. And Caroline's a character where we don't already know her that well, so sure, we're a bit concerned, but we're not, that worried about what's going to happen to her, because we've only just met her in this first episode, and to me, it wasn't as effective as I think it could have been. And I will also admit that I really do hope the show does give us flashbacks of who these characters were before this death, because that's really something that we don't know. We only know who they are in the present day. How were they before Nico's sister died, and how did she die? What really took place then? That stuff remains to be seen, and I'm looking forward to seeing really where that's going to go. And I'm thinking we're going to get that really soon. And by soon, I mean episode 2, because episode 2 is actually called Rewind. And I think that might be seeing how these kids were before the death actually did take place. So that's something I'm definitely interested in getting into. The Pride, on the other hand, can't say too much about that because we really didn't see too much of it in this episode, but clearly it's a lot more demented and a lot more malicious than they thought it was. It's not just that there are a bunch of lawyers and CEOs and things like that. There's definitely more going on there, and I'm very interested in seeing really what that's all about as well. And let me just say, the cinematography in the show is spectacular. I think the effects here were really well done, especially for a first season. I was really impressed with the effects here. Like, for example, something as simple as Molly being aware of her powers, or Carolina's hands changing. Those scenes were very well constructed, and I really did love how the effects were done here. I think the cinematography in general is great for this show. I love how everyone kind of has their own little hue. It's similar to what they did in The Defenders, and I really did love the cinematography here. I thought that was really well done. The score as well, I definitely do like. It sounds like your typical high school show. The intro is badass. I really do love the intro of the show as well. And then the editing. This episode felt very quick to me. It was only 52 minutes, and I really was into it pretty much the entire time. So for the most part, guys, I really did love this first episode. This was a very solid introduction to get us into these characters, and I'm definitely going to give the series premiere of Runaways Season 1, Episode 1, Reunion, a B+. So over, guys, in this episode of the series premiere of Runaways. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Left your thoughts on it. Moving forward, guys, I am going to try to review episodes 2 and 3. Probably, if not today, I definitely will do it tomorrow. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.